27th day of July, 2023. Treasurer Zurin, would you give us a brief roll call?
Yes, Commissioner John Pleshnik,
Present.
Commissioner Rich Regovich,
Here.
and Treasurer Michael Zurin here.
With that, I would ask for an approval of the minutes of our meeting on April 13th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous. The minutes are approved. Do we have any old business? Any old business?
No.
Hearing none. In new business, we start with our investment review.
Thank you, and good morning. Hard to believe we're halfway through 2023. And to put things in perspective from an investment standpoint, I just want to throw out there 22 years. We now have the short-term interest rates at levels we have not seen in 22 years. So as we know, the Federal Reserve did meet yesterday. As expected, they voted to increase that overnight rate by 25 basis points. That will put us now at a top rate of 5.5%. Do I need to do this? Sorry. Here we go. Sorry. I forgot I'm in control of the remote here.
And I would just like to interject. Eileen Stanek from Leader Public Funds is presenting. She is our investment advisor.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you. So as we get into the material here, as I said, we now have that overnight rate higher than what it was previously when we met, and this was in line with market's expectations. When the Fed met back in June, because they do meet 8 times a year and 4 times a year, they issue updated economic projections, which includes their guidance for where they believe will be the appropriate level of that overnight rate. Their guidance that they presented in June set the stage and confirmed that they also felt that additional rate hikes would be warranted in 2023. So what we have here on the screen is what's referred to as the dot plot. Each dot represents each members of the committee's forecast for that overnight rate. And we're comparing the March forecast in the dark blue to the June forecast, which is in orange. And as we can see, looking at the dots aligned under for 2023, the guidance from the Federal Reserve is that interest rates, another rate hike may be warranted yet this year. So that would put that overnight rate up by another 25 basis points. But then looking ahead to 2024 and 2025, while there's no real consensus, of course, in the forecast, and which that is very typical when we're when any forecasts are gathered from a variety of people, we have a variety of opinions. The underlying trend is that rates will be lower in 2024 and lower yet in 2025, as the Fed will have made significant and sufficient progress on their fight against inflation at that point, and the data they believe will present a scenario where the economy has slowed sufficiently that it would warrant starting to pivot and reverse course and lower interest rates. And we want to keep in mind always that their long-run target is an overnight rate that is more in the 2.5% level, which based on today is 3% lower than where we are with rates today. And of course, the 2.5% level would be appropriate if the U.S. economy had inflation meeting the Fed's target of 2% and unemployment, full employment within the U.S. economy. So we know that the Fed has their opinion, but the market has their opinion as well. Again, this is diverse opinions, and so the next graph here shows, starting as our baseline, the Fed's forecast, which is the turquoise line, showing that trend of the projection for that overnight rate through the balance of 2023 and then through the balance of 2024, and comparing that to the Bloomberg Survey of Economists, which is the dark blue line. Bloomberg does this survey of several economists, includes folks from academia as well as the economists from the large financial institutions, as well as other industry leaders. And we can see in that dark blue line, their expectations are that the Fed will not do that final rate hike in 2023, but again, that rates will be lower in 2024, but at a much lower rate than what the Fed has provided in their forecasts. And then the green line is the market's expectations. So this is the market participants collectively, as exhibited through the Fed Funds Futures market. And the green line we can see is the expectations were that this is the last rate hike, and going into 2024 rates will be lower, more aligned with the Bloomberg survey of economists. So we know that this is all very data dependent, subject to change based on data, and as to demonstrate that, this morning we had the first read of the second quarter GDP, gross domestic product for the U.S. It was over 2%, increase from the GDP numbers in the first quarter, which were below 2%. So the economy is continuing to move along. The growth in the GDP for the second quarter was driven by consumer spending as well as business spending. We know the consumer has been very resilient, and it has continued to spend, and the tight labor market, of course, has allowed them to continue to do so. But we are seeing some slowdown in the momentum of the service sector. So this chart is the ISM Services Index, which measures service sector activity throughout the U.S. The dark blue line, the dark solid line, is the actual index number. This is what they call a diffusion index, so meaning as they surveyed the respondents, they gauged folks that are positive, having growth in their activity, being positive, versus those where their activity may be slowing is negative, and then come up to the median. And when this overall activity is above 50, the 50 level, that's a signal that that would be a signal service sector industry is continuing to grow. When it drops below 50, that's a sign that there's contraction in that activity. So what we are seeing here of late is that the service sector activity is getting closer to that break point, that 50 level, which would then signify that there is a slowdown in the service sector area. We know we've already experienced some slowdowns in manufacturing as well. Service sector is very reliant upon the consumer spending. So as long as the consumer continues to spend, we would not anticipate that this index would drop below 50. But clearly, once consumer starts to pull back, we think we would see this drop below 50 very quickly. There's other elements on this graph which address employment within the services industry, as well as business prices paid. Of course, that's a sign of the inflation within the service sector, and we know inflation peaked back in 2022, has since come down. Initially at a more rapid pace than it has of late, but it is continuing its downward trend. So, touched on the labor market, which of course has been helping the consumer remain resilient in their spending, and we've seen, of course, the unemployment rate at 3.6%, historical lows, as well as the number of job openings are still very elevated. But there are two more, what we would consider more leading indicators within the service sector that are starting to show some signs of cooling. And the first is on the left-hand side, we can see the average weekly hours. This is an indication of folks that are weekly employees versus salaried employees, the number of hours that they're working. And of course, as we're seeing these number of hours work dropped, that of course has a direct impact on the workers' discretionary income. And then on the flip side, the initial jobless claims, as folks unfortunately, would lose their jobs through layoffs, they would then file for unemployment insurance. And there's been a lot of noise in these numbers, but due to some fraud situations and the fraud filings and such. But overall, the initial claims for unemployment insurance have been fairly steady at over 200,000 per week. So again, these are some signs that we're seeing that are starting to, if they continue, could start to have an impact on the consumer. So we're at this point in interest rates where, whoops, I went too fast. At this point in interest rates where short-term interest rates have risen very quickly. We're at levels, as we said, we've not seen in 22 years. We are closer, we believe, to the point where the Federal Reserve does pause further, and then, of course, pivots and starts to lower rates. And so the question becomes, well, how does this impact longer-term interest rates? And so we went back here on this chart and looked at the last prior 5 interest rate cycles and charted out the turquoise line being that overnight Fed funds rate. The green line is the 2-year Treasury yield, and the orange line is the 5-year Treasury yield. And so just from a technical standpoint, being able to visually see, okay, at the point when the Fed then, before they start to pause and then pivot, what happens with those longer term rates. And as we can see here, based on the numbers historically, and this is going back, of course, to 1993, so this is longer than our 22-year period. But over this time period, the longer term rates start to drop in advance of the Fed stopping permanently to raise rates and then pivoting and dropping rates. And that kind of advance period has ranged from about 5 months to upwards of a year. So a fairly good sized window of time, but the magnitude of the drop in the longer term rates has ranged from 1% to 2%. So when we think in terms of today, we have the 5-year Treasury specifically yielding just north of 4%. If it starts to drop and dropped precipitously, we could see that 5-year rates drop into the low 3s. That would be on the higher end if we're following history, and the magnitude of the drop could be upwards of a full 2%, which would in essence cut in half that current 5-year Treasury rate. And so this, of course, when we think in terms of the strategy that we've been deploying, which is let's get ahead of this and let's get these rates, the longer term rates locked in to provide that stability to the interest income for the county on a longer term basis. This certainly supports, as we see, that approach. Okay. Any questions before I get into the portfolio?
I'd just like to comment on what you were talking about last. The Investment Advisory Committee, Commissioner Pleshnik and Commissioner Regovich and I have discussed and wanted to use your strategy for long-term higher interest rate return for the county when the rates start to drop, which it looks like in 2024 they're going to start to at least start coming back down, and we are in great position with the maturity of our investments right now to maximize return. While the rates are going down, we are in good position for a couple of years to be above the market.
Yes, absolutely. So when we look at the current portfolio, this is as of the end of June. Of course, the cash piece is high because having just completed collections, we do know that, as well as the fact that the $212 million of cash also includes the $41 million that is segregated for the engineers and utilities. But the securities portion is $245 million. Those securities, of course, are invested in the permissible investments under the county's investment policy and state law. We have the portfolio structured with a weighted average maturity of 2.24 years. As we move forward and are reinvesting maturities, we would be looking to get that average maturity closer to 2.5 years. Again, to meet the objective, the strategy that we agree we're deploying. And currently, the yield on the portfolio is 2.57%, which compares very favorably to where we started the year, which was with a yield that started with a 1, I believe. So when we look at the maturity distribution on the bottom, this is where, we can really see the impact of locking in these longer-term maturities, this slow process that we've been employing here throughout this year. When we look at the number of the dollars that we have currently locked in the 4 to 5 year area, that's $48.5 million. That represents 20% of the county's investment portfolio, and those securities on average are yielding just shy of 4%. So usually write this down, but if we were to just do quick math, 48 million, basically at 4%, that will provide a significant base of interest income over the 4 to 5 year period. And so certainly, as we know, the value of having a revenue source that's stable when other revenue sources can start to turn down when the economy slows down is certainly of great value. So we kind of view that as, the dollar of income that you would receive during, if we're in an environment where sales tax or something, or property taxes will start to drop, that can be offset by the interest income that we're able to lock in. So at this point, we do have $69 million maturing here in the next 12 months. So that will give us plenty of opportunities to continue along this path. We want to be very mindful, though, that rates do vary based on economic conditions, particularly the longer end, as the market looks at the outlook for inflation and economic growth. And we always want to be very opportunistic as we deploy, this strategy and make these investments. At this stage, we have 34% of the portfolio maturing beyond 3 years. We would not want to get that perhaps beyond 40% of the portfolio.
I'd like to say something about the investment strategy. We have investigated corporate bonds, had a lot of corporate bond investment, which typically pay up to a half basis point higher than treasuries. And we've really looked at the maturity dates of the maximum interest return based on maturity dates, which has made a big impact. And I've got some numbers that I wanted to share, which I think will really exemplify what has happened over the last 3 years. In 2021, the interest income off of the county's investments was $1.5 million. In 2022, it was $3.8 million, and the projected investment income in 2023 is $12.8 million. So it's really made a huge and significant increase in what the county has to work with, and we're posed to really have a good return for years to come.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Absolutely. Perfect. So so just to sum it up, yes, we've had the Fed raise rates. We think they're much closer to the end of the rate hike cycle. The market at this point is pricing in lower rates starting in March of 2024. From an investment standpoint, we're positioning the portfolio to get ahead of rates falling and locking in interest income so that there is some stability in that income stream. Okay.
Anything else?
That's it.
And Director Stanek, I would just say once again, we thank and commend you for your hard work with the Investment Advisory Committee. It's paying great dividends for Lake County, and we're grateful for this update. Do we have anything else before we adjourn? Hearing no discussion, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. It's unanimous. We're adjourned. 10:20.
Okay, moving on directly to the 29th meeting of the Lake County Board of Commissioners. Would all those who are willing and able please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Grant us, O Lord, light to our understanding, prudence in our investigating, foresight in our planning, sincerity in our deliberating, grace to follow truth in our judgment. Help us to be moved in our decision, neither by fear nor by self-interest, and to do our work faithfully. May we respect the authority vested in us, for thou art the source of all authority. And may we use in our directives for the common good, and for thy honor and glory. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plutchnik.
Present.
Commissioner Regovich.
Here.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Here. Okay, moving on to our first public comment. Is there anyone wishing to address the board at this time? Mr. Massey. You practically jumped out of your chair, sir. I appreciate your enthusiasm.
Well, I just listened to the investment report, so. Brian Massey, 8196 Rainbow Drive, on behalf of Lobbyists for Citizens. I'm asking verbally for a public records request on the entire report of the investments, if I may, because I'd like to share that with the citizens of Lake County. I've been to a lot of these investment meetings, and all I see is the total amount continue to go up. I know 457 million I saw, and the young lady mentioned, well, that's because, the property taxes were collected and, will go down. I heard that same comment when we were at 300 to 350 million. We're continuing to go up. I sent a records request to Mr. Matus, the budget director. I want to know who has title to the funds of the 457 million. I'm still trying to address the Deepwood issue that was not resolved to my satisfaction by Alfie Roman. I have to take issue with the investment advisor. They said 2021 is 1.5 million, 2022 is 3.8, and 2023 12.8 million in investment income, and that'll be a good reserve when the property taxes and sales taxes go down. Property taxes never go down. I just want everybody to know that property taxes never go down. As the increasing the valuation of our properties, that inside millage is going to mean an increase in property taxes without a vote of the taxpayers. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. The second item that I have to discuss, I see on the agenda today, we have a request for looks like a $2 million purchase of software without a bid. For the Sheriff's Department. I'm sure it's probably warranted, but is that pretty common, spending $2 million on software without any bids, competitive bidding? Is that the procedure that we use?
The answer is yes. The sheriff is jumping out of his chair with almost the same level of enthusiasm as you, sir, but it is a continuation and a new version of the existing software, which is why it is not going up.
I assume that, and as we build a new jail, that software, it's not for the existing facility and can be transported to any new facility that we have. I just want to make sure of that.
Again, the sheriff is nodding in some degree of agreement with that statement.
Okay, again, if I could,
Forgive my relaying here, but he's behind you.
Okay,
so.
I can't see him behind me. Again, the public records
Only
request.
mothers can see what's going on behind them.
Again, if I could get, I know Mr. Matus on vacation, so I really would like the fund balances, because I want to take a look at that.
Mr. Massey?
Yes.
As president of the Investment Advisory Committee, quick responses to public records requests are important to me, so please approach the bench.
Thank you very much.
Actually, I believe it's already on your chair.
I was going to say Kathy beat you. It's already sitting at your place while you were asking. So, although Commissioner Plutchnik is Johnny on the spot,
Thank you. God bless you. Thank you.
Kathy beat him there. Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Ma'am.
Gilda Spencer, 5580 Ford Road, Madison, Ohio. So my first question is there any movement on the funding for my road yet? Because I know we don't have enough to do it. So are we moving in the direction where we're going to be able to find the funding?
I would say, in my personal observation, my colleagues can chime in, or the engineer's office, I have not seen any movement since our last meeting where we established the fund.
Okay. I recognize that this takes a long time, but we've been doing this since fall, so I was wondering why we're not having any movement.
Mr. President,
Please, sir.
this week our budget director is on vacation, and he's
Okay.
the guy that does that. So I'm hoping in the near future that we move funds from one fund to another to fund the first project on that list.
Okay, okay. So then on another personal note, when the 4-H kids were here, I don't know if you realize the triplets, our McDonald triplets from Leroy, and Mikey was my grandson's little Clover buddy. So I just want you to know that I've been to the fair watching all their shows. They did very well. He has reserve champion lamb. The sisters did great. They won their showmanship class, all three of them.
Wow.
And you have to feel sorry for the judge because we're not allowed to tell him. So he gets on the microphone and he says, I see a family resemblance here. And he said, and they all show the same. So they were placed 1, 2, and 3rd. So I hope that you go and support them. And the girl that was sitting over here that had hogs also did very well. I don't remember her name.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. President,
Sir.
I would just make the PSA that the 4-H livestock auction that Gilda was referring to is going to take place this Saturday at the Lake County Fair. It will begin with registration at 2 p.m. and the bidding starts at 4, and we certainly invite all of our friends, colleagues, and neighbors to join us in supporting the kids. So come at 2 o'clock to register. 4 p.m. bidding begins this Saturday at the Lake County Fair.
Excellent public survey, and I got another one to throw out there. When you look up all those new roofs, we heard the Fair Board loud and clear. The Board of Commissioners have been very supportive with the years of maintaining the roofs, and we're looking at adding all new roofs to the ones that are still in doubt. And if you take a look at that wonderful pavement under your feet, that's also, again, working closely with our county engineer's office, getting the best possible pricing. And I realize saying paving the fair to you, of all people, is probably not the thing that I should be saying, but truth in advertising, there it is. So the fairgrounds did get a solid, it's 30 years in the making.
They built a new pavilion on the livestock arena too, which is wonderful. I
Yes.
don't know who.
By the way, you're completely off microphone. New pavilion, livestock.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, if anyone who cares to know. Anything you want to answer? You're like that voice, we're all tuned voice at the fair, so that's kind of that.
I was there Tuesday,
fun
and
moment.
it was we were able to give the awards out to the 4-H youth, and that was a good time. It was a fun time. It was hot out.
There you go. I got to enjoy just before the parade. I got out of the way after that. But yes, all kinds of fun things. Sheriff, I believe you would like to answer?
I just wanted to clarify for Mr. Massey, there are 3 software packages the sheriff's office operates under. The jail management software, the records management software, and CAD. So this is the 3rd phase with Hexagon in that series. And as you stated, it is an upgrade to those contracts. So it doesn't have to be out for bid, but it's software, so it's transferable to the new facility. But this is for our dispatch center and computer-aided dispatch. The JMS, RMS packages, which Central also has access to, is at the sheriff's office itself.
Very good, sir. Thank you
you.
for those clarifications. Okay, anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Anyone else? Oh, well, okay, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Hi, Chris Weiss from Leroy. I hope I'm not preempting whatever you guys might have for later in this meeting, but I wanted to congratulate Mike DeLeon on being appointed judge for the juvenile court, right?
He was?
Yeah, you guys, I'm sure you knew that. So again, I hope I didn't preempt you guys, but I just wanted to congratulate you, Mike. Also, with regard to the surplus funds, did a little more research on that, and once again, I want to bring up that as my understanding of the Ohio Revised Code, when a political official such as Clerk Andrews declares that there's a surplus, you guys have the right to either agree or disagree with that. I believe you should disagree with it and invoke the last couple lines on that code that says you can have the County Budget Commission look at the funds in surplus and decide what to do with all of them. I don't think that it's fair for one political official to withhold millions of dollars of available monies, and then earmark them for their own pet projects and get credit for them. The engineer's office tells me that as of last night, the $500,000 pledge hasn't been transferred, and I'd like to know, when's that going to happen? I'd also like to know when you three gentlemen are going to transfer the remaining funds necessary to complete the road and bridge projects, because it's also my understanding that the Williams Road project is ready for bid, I believe. Is that correct? And the Ford and Payne Road projects are nearing substantial completion for the bidding and engineering phase of it. And it's my understanding that there needs to be I think the term is mechanism by which public bid can be sent out. And we don't have that mechanism because there's not the money set aside officially to do the work. And now it's coming up on a year since these road closures, some of them more than a year, and I'd really like to see some action on your part. So on the matter of the surplus funds, it only takes two of you gentlemen to disagree with the clerk and have the Budget Commission look into that. And again, two of you to decide to put other monies in the fund so that the engineer can go forward and bid these projects. I'd appreciate it if you could take action on that immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Anyone else? All right, well, this is usually where we talk about certificates and stuff, so I gotta say, and I believe you were at Tinker's Cove. I don't know if you made it out to Tinker's Cove this weekend.
Tinks Cove.
Tinks. Thank you. Tinker's, good Lord. I'm really showing my age. That was 30-some years ago. Different business, but similar name. Anyway, great place. They've got a side that's on the retail where it's kind of like this, everything's changing, sort of a garage sale type thing. A few things sort of spoke to me. If you ever want to know about the ultimate fidget device, I think there's a little bit of something on here for everybody. So if you see this thing passing around amongst us commissioners, it came from Tinks. John, take a look now. If there's anything lacking on that, let me know. And then we all hear about all these crazy conspiracy theories about how birds are not real, and I couldn't help but notice when I saw a few birds on the shelf that had charge coupled devices for eyes. So I had to buy that. They have, again, on the retail side. Now on the not retail side, where they actually give things away. So if you've got students, loved ones, friends who really need something, there's everything from infant through adult, a real emphasis on infants and school-age children. These folks, they really have that servant's heart. They're giving things away, literally. They're accepting donations or 501c3, but their whole model is they buy, they sell, but they wind up with extra stuff that they really can't necessarily sell, but they could, but it actually makes more sense to just give it away. And they actually, there's this wonderful gal there who has very skilled hands, and I know this is probably too small to see, handcrafted gift boxes. So those are the kinds of things that you can see. There's a little bit of something for everybody, but it's amazing all the things that are there. Again, I'll just slide that over to you when you see, birds are real, just to be clear. But the original artwork that's being done there on the retail side is pretty impressive. Just all these mundane things that we see converted into wall hangings, keychains, and pretty much a lot of different things in between. I don't know, gentlemen, if you want to add to it, but that was it. It's a very unique facility.
Mr. President, I would just say we certainly thank the owners of Tinks Co. for providing this public service and sharing gently used clothes and appliances and other goods for free to those in need. So it's a wonderful community endeavor, and we certainly encourage you to visit them out in Perry Township. It's got a Paynesville zip code, but out in Perry Township right there. I think that you'll find it to be a wonderful establishment. So whether you can donate or you have a need, they're there for you. I would just add two more things. We are indeed going to be honoring our newest judge, Mike DeLeon, at our next commissioners meeting. So we would encourage friends, family, and those who wish to congratulate Judge DeLeon to join us. All the commissioners are very proud that one of our own, who has served us with such distinction as our legal counsel, will go on to lead our juvenile court. But we will reserve most of the accolades for next meeting because we want Mike's family and friends to be in attendance. And just a little side point, I feel like as the commissioner not on the ballot, it's always my job to defend the institution of the Board of the Commissioners. And so I certainly agree we need to take action collectively on all the roads and bridges on the east side as quickly as possible. I do just want to point out that if you disagree with the choice to charge or not to charge, the county prosecutor is the only person with the authority to make those decisions. If you don't like the way taxes are collected, you need to talk to the treasurer. And if you're concerned with how roads and bridges are prioritized, when those decisions, how those decisions are made, that's in the realm of the engineer. Because of the extraordinary situation, many other elected officials like the clerk and the commissioners are jumping in to help, but I would not do my colleagues justice unless if I pointed out that they are not the county engineer, the county prosecutor, the treasurer. This is an extraordinary situation where the commissioners are going above and beyond, working with our colleagues to aid the engineer in their statutorily mandated responsibilities. And we are happy to do it because it's our job to serve, but it would be remiss of me if I did not give that PSA, because there will be many meetings with many concerns about many departments. The Board of Commissioners are the budgetary authority. We have limited roles and responsibilities under the Ohio Revised Code, and it's important for residents to understand which elected officials have which authorities, because we are all accountable to you as elected officials. But this is not a critique of anyone, it's merely a demarking of responsibility, because it's important for folks to know who's in charge of what. And once again, I would be remiss if I didn't defend my colleagues. It's not that they aren't acting fast enough. They have done more than any Board of Commissioners in history, and we heard that from our township trustee, Kenny Gontler, at the last meeting. There's never been an action like this, to his knowledge, as a former county administrator, ever been done in Lake County. So I commend Commissioners Ragovich and Hammercheck, as well as our clerk of courts, on working with the engineer to find an extraordinary solution.
Thank you. And continue. I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
I need that device down here.
I was going to say, share.
And no, the Tinks Cove is a great thing for the, but I also want to name this bird Azalea for our clerk. Little inside joke.
There's a backstory there, ladies and gentlemen. Little foreshadowing. Sorry, Jennifer. So finishing out the thought on Tinks Cove, giving out addresses is great, but landmarks is better, and it also gets a plug for a couple more businesses. Tinks Cove is right across the street from the Dairy Queen, out there in the area of the 220 split over by Lane Road and Route 20. Also in the area of Stars Cars and the Perry IGA. So if you can find that little neck of the woods, you can find Tinks Cove. And I would highly recommend stopping in there, because you just never know what you're going to find. Something that you personally can't live without, or you can get for a loved one as a nice gift. So with that, is there anyone else wishing to address this board? And now that the bird has the name Azalea, yay. As we go into our meeting, if there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, first agenda item, please.
In the engineer's office, resolution awarding a bid contract to the Ohio Bridge Corporation, DBA US Bridge, for the LAK Booth Road, County Road 6 09-0.24 bridge project as required by the Lake County engineer in the amount of $447,129.45.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing final approval and acceptance of a 3-year maintenance surety for Azalea Ridge Farm subdivision in Perry Township.
Move to approve Azalea.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. By the way, Jennifer, you know who your friends are when you get teased by them, so.
That's a difficult word for me. Resolution authorizing final approval and acceptance of a 3-year maintenance surety for McKinley Crossing subdivision in Painesville Township.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Utilities Department, resolution increasing appropriations in Lake County Department of Utilities Water Fund.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution accepting a 3-year maintenance bond in the amount of $27,099.89 for water lines for McKinley Crossing subdivision in Painesville Township, job number 22-14.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution accepting a 3-year maintenance bond in the amount of $41,630.26 for sanitary sewers for McKinley Crossing subdivision in Painesville Township, job number 22-15.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution awarding a bid contract in the amount of $289,750 to Davis Diggers for Industrial Park Sanitary Sewer Contract 2, Project 415S 2018.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution awarding a bid contract in the amount of $6,453,522 to J.S. Bova Excavating Company, Incorporated for Bennett Road Truck Sanitary Sewer Improvement Project 454S 2021.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Randy, that's a pretty big ticket item. Do you want to give a little background on that?
It is. Thank you, Commissioner. This is part of our interconnect with Madison Village, phase 1 of that project. It will be 21-inch sanitary sewer from along Bennett Road from Chapel Road down to Route 20. And then from there, there'll be phase 2, which will go from south of Route 20 over to Hubbard Road to complete the interconnect with Madison Village. And I'd like to, as part of the department, thank the commissioners for contributing some significant amount of ARPA money to this project, $6 million, to make this move quite a bit faster. And we really look forward to this project and getting it completed and getting that interconnect completed with Madison Village. Wrapping this project up that I think you and I started talking about 2004 or 2005. So yeah, finally get to a conclusion.
Yeah, that was back when I was a Madison Village councilman on the Utilities Subcommittee, of which we created the Utilities Subcommittee to actually have these kinds of conversations. And we're still talking about it. But we're getting there. So a couple background things. So we came in at 2.4% over the engineer's estimate within the 10% margin. So we're good there. And one of the other questions that keeps coming up, this is not the contractor that the village is currently using for their portion. This is a different vendor.
It is a different contractor, yeah. The contract was open to public bid. This is the lowest and best bidder.
Got it. Okay. Because there was a lot of inquiring minds want to know. So, gentlemen, anything further? Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution certifying unpaid water and sewer sums and administrative charges to the Lake County Auditor.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Commissioner's Office, resolution approving the final dedication plat for Azalea Ridge Farms subdivision in Perry Township.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Hexagon Safety and Infrastructure for on-call computer-aided dispatch CAD software upgrades for the Lake County Sheriff's Office.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. President,
Sir.
I would just repeat, because it bears repeating, that our sheriff's office and their dispatch center is bar none the best institution of its kind in Northeast Ohio, if not the entire state. We're very blessed to be serviced by them. The savings that they give to local communities and the increased response times that they provide are truly remarkable. When I was a councilman for Willoughby Hills and the sheriff was our chief deputy, we worked together with Captain Mike Warner to bring Willoughby Hills onto the county dispatch center, and the incredible improvement we had in service and response times and savings that exceeded what then Chief Deputy Liam Bruno promised were remarkable for our community, and we benefit from it in Willoughby Hills to this day. So this is an investment that benefits all of our county, and we're very grateful for the hard work of everyone in the dispatch center in keeping us safe.
Thank you, sir. If there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing the Board of Lake County Commissioners to issue a request for qualifications for design build services for the proposed Lake County Public Safety Center project.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Jason, you want to give some background on that?
Good morning, Commissioners. Yeah, this resolution is yet another significant step forward in the Lake County proposed Public Safety Center. As you are aware, we are underway with HOK on the schematic and detailed design phase of the project, which is obviously important. But just as important is starting the request for qualification process for soliciting and ultimately hiring a design builder, which is a team approach where we will ultimately, by October, according to the timeline, have the guys and gals who will physically be building the structure, along with the architect of record, who will receive the handoff from HOK at a designated time. This will be a competitive process, will require a significant amount of time from the sheriff and his team and the commissioners as we review these proposals, we vet them, we interview them, more than likely we tour some facilities in which they may have designed or constructed. And then once they are under contract, they will start to work directly with HOK on constructability, estimating, etc. So the RFQ and associated documents were prepared along with the prosecutor's office, with primarily by PMC consultants who've been helping us through all the contract law, etc. This advertisement, assuming it is approved shortly, will be in the paper tomorrow.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Anything else for Jason? Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
And the Finance Department resolution approving payment of bills as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $2,119,932.05.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck. Resolution approving purchase orders as listed on the Commissioner's Purchase Order Approval Journal in the amount of $806,714.44.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution increasing appropriations for various non-general fund accounts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution transferring appropriations within various general fund accounts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
And special resolutions, resolution congratulating Rose Bennett, named an Outstanding Youth of the Year 2023 by the Ohio State University Extension of Lake County.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. President,
Sir.
it was truly an honor to co-present these 3 resolutions in advance to our 4-H outstanding youth at their celebration immediately following the Lake County Fair Parade. I think that Commissioner Regovich would agree that these are some incredible individuals. I mean, Rosie Bennett, Griffin Demshire, and Audrey Ruby Peeler have already done so much for their community. In particular, I would highlight Griffin Demshire, who was unable to join us for the ceremony because he's already entered service in our U.S. Air Force. So these are some incredible young people, and we're so grateful that they've supported our community through the 4-H. So honoring them was the least we could do, and it was frankly wonderful just to be there.
Well said. Thank you, sir. Anything you want to answer?
I agree.
There you go. Teamwork. All right. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution congratulating Griffin Demshaw, named an Outstanding Youth of the Year 2023 by the Ohio State University Extension of Lake County.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution congratulating Audrey Ruby Peeler, named an Outstanding Youth of the Year 2023 by the Ohio State University Extension of Lake County.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Moving on to departmental reports, utilities.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just want to let you know that the Kirtland Old Town Sanitary Sewer Assessment Project Phase 1 has been completed, installed, and tested. And in the next few weeks, we'll be letting everybody know that they can start tying in their sanitary sewers along the first phase. Been working with Dave Radacci and his group to set up the CDBG funding that has been pledged by the commissioners about a year ago or so to help with some of the connection costs. So that'll be happening in the next couple of weeks. And we plan on advertising Phase 2 this fall and be constructed in the summer of 2024.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else?
Mr. President, is there ribbon cutting?
There is not.
Oh my. All right, Job and Family Services.
Thank you, Commissioner. There's been lots of discussion here today about the wonderful Lake County Fair that's going on through the weekend, and I'm proud to share that Job and Family Services is sponsoring Kids Day, which is today at the Lake County Fair. Children under age 14 can get in free today if they are accompanied by an adult age 21 and over. So again, we are sponsoring that today. We also have staff members from Job and Family Services at the fair for today, the rest of the week, and they are promoting our services regarding child support, children's services, and adult protective services to get the word out to the community about the services that we offer. And I also wanted to mention that tomorrow is Senior Day at the fair. Individuals age 16 over are admitted free until 3 p.m. And again, our staff will be there tomorrow once again to interact with folks, to share our message about adult protective services. And lastly, I just wanted to express my congratulations to Mr. De Leon regarding the appointment for juvenile court judge. As everyone knows, our department works very closely with juvenile court, specifically in our Children's Services Division, so we're looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you. County Engineer. Jason, anything you have to answer? Do you have anything for us?
Administrator or engineer?
I'm sorry, did I say engineer? Wow, you got transferred and promoted there, sorry. See what happens, Jim goes on vacation.
No, thanks.
Now we have a coup.
Two things, more of kind of public service announcements. Next Thursday, August 3rd at 12:30, assuming you fine gentlemen conclude your meeting, we will have a ribbon cutting and groundbreaking at the Lake County Sheriff's Range Project. Invitation was distributed yesterday. We're going to cut the ribbon for Phase 1. And then slide over a couple hundred feet and do a groundbreaking for Phase 2. Take the opportunity to thank the Clerk of Courts for her investment in Phase 2. I believe she will also be attending. So hope if you can make it to join us out at the Sheriff's Range facility on Blaze Namath Road, just past the U-Lab. Go past the weigh scale, hang a left, and you'll be directed accordingly. Secondly, piggybacking on to the Kirtland project, I was speaking with Planning Director Radacci just now. About October is the timeline when that program will be up and running for residents, so stay tuned for more. But Dave's looking at about a October administration kickoff on the assistance for some of the homeowners up there. So thank you. And it's Azalea.
Thank you, sir. Anything for Jason before he sits down? There you go. See how he just runs away. Shoot and scoot. Nice. All right, Madam Clerk.
The next commissioners meeting is going to be Thursday, August 3rd at 10 a.m. and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being such a good sport. And legal, we're going to kind of get some work out of you. You're not going to get away with no report. So I'm going to ask regarding the issue of a mechanism for the engineer to go out to bid. Are we correct in our understanding that by creating that fund, although there's no money in it, the engineer could go out to bid on a project in anticipation of funding to follow?
If the monies are in the process of being collected or appropriated, then yes.
So they have to be in process, the fact that we created the account.
You created it, you have the intent, you have the process moving.
Okay, so we have hit the requisite, there's movement amongst us to get some funding in there, so theoretically.
It's in process, and with the budget director, as Commissioner Regovich had mentioned, on vacation this week.
Much needed vacation.
Yes, yes, he is a very hard worker.
And he is avoiding being on the beach for fear of somebody rolling him back into the water.
Oh, boy.
Miss you, Mike, in case you're watching. So, all right, so we got that out of the way. Do you have a report, sir? I'm trying to get all the ministerial stuff out of the way here.
No report, I just wanted to thank everyone.
Thank you. And then please don't file a workers' comp claim if we're patting you on the back here so much. Congratulations. Well done. You have persevered through a number of such opportunities, and you finally landed this one. So that's a good thing. We look forward to next week where we can reprise our roles of congratulating you in front of your friends and family. You do. I know you have family. Do you have friends?
Some that will claim me.
Some that will claim it. Gotcha. Now I have to open up to my colleagues. Gentlemen, here's our chance. Michael.
So, congratulations, Mike, and I'd like to just state that this is the last judgeship that has to be awarded. It seems like this process has gone on for a really long time, and I don't know how you lasted through that part, but...
Thank you. Yeah, about a year and a half of process, and met several interviews with the governor's office.
A lot of trips to Columbus.
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, I would just say that for so many of us, Congressman Steve LaTourette set the standard of uplifting our colleagues, not focusing on his campaign or his career, but really being a mentor to all those who work with them. Our county prosecutor, Chuck Colson, has surely followed in that legacy, and I know that you share that philosophy as well. And so it's wonderful to see you uplifted to a new place in your career, but I have no doubt that your work in uplifting all those around you will continue. And as we look back on Steve and we see so many people who were able to serve because of his guidance and mentorship, I'm sure that 20, 30, 40 years from now, we'll look back and see the many folks that you have uplifted. So congratulations, Judge DeLeon. Your work has just begun.
Thank you, sir.
Wow. All right. And notice how he's sitting up much straighter these days. Shoulders back. There you go. Okay, moving on. Old business. Do we have any old business coming before the board? Any old business? Moving on to new business. Do we have any new business? Any new business? I got a quick update. Let's see if I get this right here. The State Interoperability Executive Committee met yesterday down in Columbus. The biggest single topic that was so pervasive and wove through everything was the upcoming solar eclipse. This is very much a concern. Other areas of the country that did in previous years experience this We've reviewed the after-action reports from those locations. Although the event's a less than 5-minute event, there have been reports of traffic jams and other congestion issues that were in the 12-hour range. So a lack of planning can really cause a great deal of problem. The last time we had a total eclipse in this area apparently was 1806, and one of the big concerns that was talked about, and I know we've talked about it, but we got to keep pushing this, is 70% of the population of the U.S. is within 24 hours drive time of this event. Now the good news for us is we're going to get a little bit of a sneak preview because we're on the exit point here in Lake County. So if things start to go silly in other parts of the country as the eclipse comes our way, we will have a little bit of a heads up of, brace for shock. One of the themes that we're all being encouraged, and I think our Visitors Bureau is going to hang their hat and glom onto this one, is arrive early, stay late. So there are going to be some tremendous opportunities, even if we have lousy weather that day. Bring people in, give them a reason to hang out. One example is just in Cleveland alone, the Guardians are going to be doing a watch party in addition to their game. So that's one of the things that, hey, we've got a game. Here in Lake County, we could do similar such things. So we can kind of hang our hats on that one too. And the state has actually formed an Ohio Eclipse Planning Task Force. Oh boy. One of the concerns though that needed to be conveyed though is 70% of all fire departments in Ohio are volunteer. And one of the things that was emphasized that the available resources have been all reserved and have all been committed. So pretty much whatever we've got in Lake County or whatever we're planning on adding, that's on us. We are not going to be able to count on the state to provide us any additional assets. I know we do have a request coming before us. We're in the process of getting it approved through outside legal for upgrades and improvements to our communication system, including 2 additional channels to be added. So those are the sorts of things that we're all being encouraged to lock down. Let's see what else. And one of the other topics had to do with the school radios, making sure that those are tested. They're still finding that throughout the state of Ohio, many of those radios, they just sit idle. So when they're actually needed, they do not work. So there's really an encouraging there. Even though we have no control over school boards, we probably should be encouraging them to please test your communications. And we are not directly impacted by the Marks radio system, but we are a partner in this. There was hope to subsidize those fees, and basically coming in at a $5 fee on that. And our next generation 911, there was hope of securing funding in the tune of 64 cents per device that has access to 911. Ultimately, that was at 40 cents. And there are some concerns as to the ability to sustain systems. Again, keep in mind, Lake County is the prime site for all wireless communications in Lake County. The city of Menard is our backup. So the state is taking a look, and they may, and we all know what may means, they may cover the gap, but that is uncertain at this time. So unless there's any questions on that, that is my update on yesterday's meeting. All right, is there any other new business to come before the board? All right, hearing none, moving on to our second public comment. Mr. Massey.
Again, Brian Massey, 8196 Rainbow Drive. Again, I would also like to congratulate, it says Mr. Hackman, but I know it's not Mr. Hackman, it's Mr. De Leon. I have a feeling, though, I'm not going to be able to ask for public records request from the juvenile court, so I feel bad about that, so I'm going to miss that from you. I had a meeting with citizens this past week. A young lady worked as a volunteer for redistributing drugs that were received from various retirement communities. I guess Mr. Joel Lucia was heading up the endeavor, but they ran out of funding. Do the commissioners have any input on that? It seemed like a worthwhile program where I understand many of the seniors got drugs that they need at a very affordable cost. Do you have any input on that, why that program was stopped, or is it a service being provided by some other entity in Lake County that I'm not aware of?
I'm trying to be diplomatic on this. This has
Okay,
been
good.
talked about now for a couple of years. There were challenges associated with this program. If representatives of that organization would like to come to a commissioners meeting and speak on this subject rather than sending a surrogate, I apologize, Mr. Massey, that you were made the scapegoat on this one. So anything.
That's okay, I'm used to it.
No, actually, it's not okay, because some of the things that they were involved in are crossing some lines.
Okay.
When I read newspaper articles talking about millions of dollars in inventory, much of which is expired, the value of an expired medication is zero. I don't care if it's a $10,000 cancer drug. If it is expired, it is expired. It is of no market value. The supplies that they were relying on was literally foraging for drugs, so there was no stability. So getting people reliant on a non-sustainable supply chain, I'll use that term, again, trying to be diplomatic, is cruel at a minimum and unrealistic. There are other services to cover these things. This was a low-hanging fruit. In many regards, it was feel-good, and there were some questions of management from its early days. Again, if they wish to come here and challenge this board, I'll be happy to discuss it bluntly with them.
Okay.
They have so chosen not to. They usually send surrogates such as yourself through emails and phone calls. Never once are we approached by the members proper. So,
Thank you very much. What I'll do, as you know that I will do, I will go to, I will seek out Joel Latia.
and I can assure you, if they should choose to come, I will not be as diplomatic.
Okay.
So consider that the gauntlet put down in the line in the sand, and I know that's a term that you also like to use, sir.
Thank you.
And again, I appreciate your candor, and I hope you respect mine.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Anything else, sir? Oh, thank you. Okay, anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Anyone else? Sir?
Morning, Commissioners. John Mara, 39 Minnewawa Drive, Cleveland. Over the past few months, every meeting almost, there's been talk about the road closures in Madison and elsewhere. And anyway, so yesterday I decided to take a little field trip. Being a former contractor myself, and I wanted to go see the project. So I went to Ford Road first, and it was a project that basically, if I was a contractor, I'd probably bid on it. So I looked at it basically from a contractor's point of view. Let me go see this job, let me see what it's going to entail if I were to bid on it. So I go there and I do a little investigating myself, and I look at the top and I'm thinking, I don't see anything in danger of collapse right now. Maybe it's down below. So I went down the hill, walked into the water underneath the culvert. Took a lot of pictures and videos, by the way, that I can share later. But anyway, so walked through the whole thing, and I saw a couple areas where I saw on the downstream end, a wing wall was basically off. It was moved and shifted, and some of the bank was coming down. I thought, okay, that was probably the most severe part. And then there's an invert that's worn out, probably needs a new invert. I'm thinking, okay, do we need to replace this thing? And I'm thinking, I don't see it as being replaceable. I mean, all I know is I saw it as, I could fix this. If I were to come on this job and look at this project, it would probably be fixed. And how would we do that? Basically put a small retaining wall where the wing wall is pushed in and backfill that area, do some consolidation grouting, chemical grouting and so forth to stabilize the soil. As far as the roadway go, we can basically take out the pavement that's there because it's over existing ground. We can basically put a thick pavement, a foot, maybe 18 inches thick, reinforced, and almost bridge that whole area out. You could drive a tank on it after we get done with it. Okay, again, I'm no engineer, former contractor, but again, I look at practical ways of fixing things. My biggest complaint for my wife in 30 years of being, when we had our other house, was that she never got a new appliance because I fixed them all the time. This, I believe, is very, very fixable. I don't know if the engineer's office looked at it. I mean, obviously, we don't have the money to do a replacement or even, of this magnitude. And the thing is, then we have two other areas that need to be repaired. Where are we going to get the money for that? We've been hearing we still don't have the money. Again, it's appropriated, but again, it's still not in the account. And we can move forward, but then again, on Ford Road example, we have to go through a bidding process. As a gentleman explained last week, it's going to take bless you, it's going to take at least a year, okay, by the time they get this thing going, get the bidding process, get it constructed and finalized, if not more than that. So it's like, how are these residents, they've already been out a year without access, how are they going to go another year? Why aren't we looking at ways to fix this? I believe it could be fixed to an area where it could be safe, and then again, we can get another couple of decades out of it easily. I don't see anything wrong with it. Again, I believe that we should get another engineer looking at it, structural engineer, a geotechnical engineer, look at the ground soils, look at the structure itself. Structures can be repaired and fixed. Chemical grouting, there's a lot of new methods out there to regain the structural integrity of any structures. Personally, I don't see anything wrong with it. Again, I'm not an engineer, but I think it should be looked into, that instead of going and spending millions and millions of dollars we don't have to try to get this repaired, which is going to be years out, how about we fix it now? We can get it, I believe, in a couple of months, get this thing fixed, get the road open. If it was me a year ago, I would have done this a year ago and had that road open within 2 months. I'm sorry. I mean, as a contractor, I get things done. So anyway, and again, just going through it all, I think we need to really look at that. Number two, I went to Williams Road. That was another one that I wanted to look at. That one really is beyond me why it's closed. I see it's about 6 inches sloughed off on one lane. It's a 2-to-1 slope going from there. That chemical consolidation grouting run underneath, you transfer the load from horizontal to vertical load bearing underneath the roadway, put thickened pavement there. Problem fixed. I mean, there's worse areas along that road that I see that are more critical need than that. I saw no reason really why that road was closed to begin with. A simple patch and fix could be done. Then I went over to Blair Road. I wanted to see that one. Again, that's a little more complicated there because again, you've got the road there. There is a retaining wall that's sloughed off a little bit. But in that case, it's another one where again, consolidation grouting, you can do secant piles there. That's another way to stabilize a hillside. There's many ways we can do that could be done immediately without having to replace the whole thing. And I believe it's a quick, easy fix. And the other thing is we can look at is also, we can make it so that you can have no trucks. I mean, basically you put a load limit on it. No trucks over 5 tons or 2.5 tons or whatever if they're that cautious about the safety of it. But again, I didn't see any of those 3 areas where I saw an immediate need to close the road. I really didn't. I mean, these could have been closed temporarily, repaired, and then opened back up again. I just didn't see a need for it. And I don't see a need where really any of them need to be replaced at this point or have that much of a project again. These are all simple things I think that needed to be looked at. And at this point, Mr. Gills hasn't been here the last, I don't know how many meetings. And again, I'm sure he doesn't want to face any questions or anything, but I don't know if anyone looked into it. Again, I think it's something that we really need to look into because, again, we don't have the money to replace all 3 of them and do all these projects, but we do have money that we could do emergency repairs on them immediately and get it done under emergency. So, thank you.
Thank you. And before I turn to the engineer, you've indicated several times former contractor, not an engineer. I can tell you that I am a current state licensed contractor and I know my limitations. But again, let's just piggyback, not an engineer, and I have to make the point out. So you cannot certify the safety or serviceability of any of these bridges to which you're referring. I appreciate your enthusiasm. I appreciate your passion. But when you're dealing with life safety, there are strict regulations that our engineer has to adhere to. And I'm glad that you stayed. Would you care to add to this? Because I don't think this is something where we can just do a homemade fix. There's an old saying in the industry, water always wins. So right now, I'll just turn it over to you.
So as far as Ford Road has been looked at by more than just engineers in our office. Although we do have qualified structural engineers, which have PE licenses, meaning they've gone through the proper training to be able to make that assessment. Our office will actually make assessments for other agencies to assist them with their evaluations of their infrastructure. So based on those qualifications of being an engineer, they have looked at that. There were temporary repairs made on Ford Road less than 2 years ago. That's where part of the problem comes in. They did address that. Like you, they felt that they could, the bridge engineer, that we could bridge that gap. We could get to something that we could last 10, 15 years before funding would become available to do a large project to replace that. Part of the problem, which you probably noticed on Ford, is the alignment. So with that alignment of Ford, the river comes in, the creek comes in, Talcott Creek, but it doesn't come in that it's running just perpendicular with that bridge. You have an angle that comes in, so you have water which is always beating against that side of that retaining wall. On that side that you referenced, the wing wall, that ring wall has rotated more than 45 degrees, and that was rebuilt less than 2 years ago. Because of the narrowed, or the construction of the bridge, we're going to continue to see that with the heavy rainfall that we get, and those temporary fixes were not applicable. So a new bridge which widens that opening, which realigns the creek, allows the water to flow through, is going to improve the safety through that area. You do also, and maybe you didn't notice that when you were in there, you have separations because that Ford Road was an original structure, which is a beautiful stone arch underneath, but there were multiple extensions that are put on over time. Back in the day, roads didn't have to be a certain width. So, one-lane road was acceptable. But each of those extensions means now you have gaps. You have areas for failure as you get the increase of traffic and water, which is beating through those areas and washing away. So hopefully that helps with Ford. As far as Williams, you're correct on that. With the sloughing, we've done repairs on there. So it also had that temporary fix to come in for a couple years, dig it out, refill, and fill the patches through those areas. It's not lasting. And the heavier rainfall that we're seeing in those areas is causing more problems with erosion down along the embankments. So,
Did you do consolidation grouting of the soils under that road or no?
No, they
You
looked
just
at more
replaced
of a concrete stabilization and some of the others to be able to look at.
Well, that's
the problems
temporary.
in there, though, as you're talking, is the soil types, and it's the same with Payne Road. So when the soils become wet in those areas, they become almost a liquefied state, and that's what you see leaking out. So we've had several different engineering geotechnical consultants who've come in and looked at Payne Road over the years, and a wall and some reinforcement, as you talked about, is what's proposed. But it's not it's not an easy, nor is it a cheap fix to come in and just pour some pilings and say that we're done tomorrow.
Was a consolidation grouting looked at? Chemical grouting?
I can't answer that.
Okay, well, that was one of the ideas. I mean, that would solve one of the problems, but again.
Theoretically,
Again,
that would solve one of the questions.
Right.
Again, you're speaking in terms of engineering absolutes and certitudes. You've acknowledged that you are not an engineer.
Yes, thank God.
So that being said, again, please, for the audience who may be watching this or hearing it, don't give false hope. When you actually have engineers who do this for a living and you're talking about life safety, and you say don't take trucks down there, so you're going to tell the fire department you're not allowed to go down there. So if they're responding to an emergency and you lose $1 million apparatus and its crew, I don't really want to explain that to the families. So there's a number of factors in play here. We are talking about life safety issues. I appreciate the enthusiasm, but this is not something that we can just keep putting Band-Aids on. We actually, again, to Ford Road, for example, again, a proper bridge back in the day with multiple additions. Common sense tells you, if you even build a house, where's the roof leak? At the addition. Imagine constantly having water flowing. Water always wins. Williams Road, in an abundance of caution, our engineers cut down a bunch of trees in preparation for this. What did people do? They found fault. Well, it's the tree roots that are stabilizing the road. Well, you have to cut the trees down before bird and bat season, otherwise you're not allowed to cut the trees down. Most people don't know that. And if you're counting on a road being held in place in its integrity off of tree roots, just the absurdity of some of the things that we have been challenged with, and I can only imagine if we're getting hit with it, what the engineer's office is getting hit with. And regarding Engineer Gills not being here, it's not that he's not here to answer questions. He has always been willing to answer questions. He has other responsibilities that he attends to, and he is actually enjoying some time with his family right now. So even elected officials are allowed to take some time off. And I will tell you that our Chief Deputy is worthy and well qualified to answer any question that Engineer Gills could also be likely to answer. So I felt strongly that I needed to say that. So thank you for all that you do, man. So again, please, it's one thing to talk about something in theory or what about, but to make declaratory statements that are absolute is not appropriate. So
I'm not talking absolute, but what I'm suggesting is that another engineer look at it.
and
Because
you've just
again,
heard that has been done.
what has been done, but then again,
So what are you going to?
I guess, sorry, one last question.
Somebody tells you what you want to hear.
If
This is not going to be a debate. This is where we're at. We need money. We've got the money to do this.
why isn't it being done then?
Don't ask me that question. I'd write the check today.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I think the other options should have been looked at, because again, it is a safety concern, and again, I believe that methods that I think that would have repaired this thing would be able to support a fire truck, actually a tank, okay, in my mind. Because again, as a contractor, I know how to build jobs, okay? I don't know how to design them, but I do know how to build them. And there's been a lot of jobs designed that I had to redesign because they weren't designed properly. Again, just being a contractor, practical end of it. But as a contractor looking at it, personally, I think it's fixable. That's all I thought. And it could have been, we could have gotten away with it, especially the other two. You know, Ford Road, I understand, is a unique situation. But then again, the other two, for example, those, I believe, are easy fixes, okay, in my mind. But then again, it's just my opinion. But thank you
Fair
for your
enough.
time. Thank
By
you.
the way, on the subject of a tank, the loading per square inch is actually less on that being a tracked vehicle. So the military had that one figured out a long time ago. So, thank you, Madam Engineer. Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Anyone else? All right, thank you. We do, yes, ma'am.
Just wanted to share with everyone that the engineer's office will be hosting a job fair. We're hiring out of our maintenance garage, which is located at 550 Blackbrook Road in Painesville Township. The event, we're going to have a 2-day event this year. We're looking on Friday, August 11th, between 2 and 5 p.m., and on Saturday morning, August 12th, between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. We're advertising for laborers, mechanics, and mechanics helpers to come in and join our team. As we currently stand, we won't be able to provide the same services that we have in the past, especially when it comes to snow plowing this year on county roads and State Route 2. So we're hoping that people will be interested, come to our job fair and join our team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Sir.
Am I right in assuming that Job and Family Services, Ohio Means Job, Lake County is participating?
They have participated in the past on that. And this occasion, I think this is an event we're hosting, but by providing them with the information so that they can get that out. Our goal is to try to reach as many people as we can in Lake County and even in the outskirts.
Absolutely. I'll just say that Ohio Means Jobs Lake County has done a great job with our Department of Utilities and other departments, so definitely use them as a resource. They always do bring folks out. The Utilities Job Fair, I was just blown away how many people came out to interview. They definitely know their stuff, and those services are also available to private businesses as well. So if you're a business looking for workers, and I think most are right now, remember Ohio Means Jobs Lake County for free will help you to set up a job fair or other event to recruit. I would also just add in response to the mayor's comments, one thing I've heard repeatedly from residents who are concerned with their road closures on the east side, and this is something that the residents have said, this is not me coming up with a motto or a phrase, they've said closing a road is not a strategy to repair roads. And I agree that we can't have as our fallback every time a road has issues just simply closing the road. It may be that a fix or keeping one lane open is a temporary accommodation, and it may require continued maintenance. And I recognize that there is a cost there, but it's all about priorities, and every department head has to decide how to prioritize their budget and where to put their effort, their money, and their work. But I do think that simply closing the road until you go through the process, even if there's plenty of money there, the process of bidding out, design, and work, that takes a lot of time, and that takes a toll on the residents who have to wait. So if and to the extent that we're capable of repairing a road to keep it open, even during that 1-year period where we're looking at the bidding process and the design process, I think we have to seriously consider that from the perspective of the engineer's office, because it does put the residents out to a great degree to have to wait, even when the only delay is simply going through the process.
So looking to legal, I'll come back to the engineer in just a moment. If in the professional opinion of the county engineer, a road is not serviceable and needs to be closed, if that road were to be remain open in any form for convenience and something bad happened that was foreseeable, predictable, and even accounted for by the engineer, yet they kept it open, would there be legal liability to that? Yes, I know I just left you a low-hanging fastball.
Yes, sir. In fact, the revised code specifically gives the engineer the right and the duty to close roads when, in the engineer's opinion, they are unsafe. And in exercising that duty, the revised code is very specific that only the engineer can make the call as to whether a road or a bridge is safe or unsafe. And it's a matter of public safety, as you said, for the engineer to exercise that. And in working with Mr. Gills over the last 21 years, he exercises that judiciously and only when necessary, when there's a safety factor at issue.
Thank you, sir. I'm going back to the engineer. Anything you want to add?
Mr. DeLeon stated most of what I was going to say, so thank you. That we don't take that lightly in our office. You know, with all of these roads, we try very hard to take a look at them to make sure that we're making intermediate repairs, which is why on Ford Road, there's been 2 repairs within the last, well, now we're almost to 2.5, almost 3 years, but there were 2 intermediate repairs in hopes to continue to extend the lifespan of that structure while we were looking for additional funding. Other factors that go into that when we're looking, you know, when we talk about 1 lane and traffic signals become an issue with us also, especially if we have locations with sight distance issues. We learned that very well on Vermin Road as our example. With the traffic signals there, we were very fortunate that many of those were just head-ons and they'd get very close to each other, maybe a little fender bender, and they would stop. But there is that likelihood, knowing then that we admit we know we have a problem and we know it's happening every night, to leave it in that state and then potentially have a more serious accident through that area.
And just to put a nice bow on this, I am a Madison person, so I understand this. I have grown up in Perry, lived out there pretty much my entire adult life. I'm very familiar with this area, and I also appreciate the can-do attitude of the residents. So our taking a very strong position on this is not ignoring or disregarding. I too have heard similar such statements, as the mayor has pointed out, literally right down to plant trees. There's so many suggestions of how to work around this until a proper fix, but there does come a time when you have to say we can't get any more out of this. And I don't know if you just want to add to that, but we are taking this very serious, and I feel that we need to emphasize we are taking this very seriously.
Absolutely. But never is the goal of the engineer's office just to take someone's road out of use for political gain or whatever it is that's being said out there. It's really about looking at public safety. And, you know, maybe in some instances are we cautious? Yes. But it's better to be cautious than know that we caused harm to a resident, a citizen, you know, of Lake County. As far as looking at options and alternatives, the one major thing on Ford Road, we've talked about the preliminary engineering that we've done. Preliminary engineering with a bridge projects entails that looking at all of those options. So Richland Engineering, who is the consultant who's been doing that, has been looking at what are those options. And anytime you're looking at that, it's the no build, it's the patching, it's the different structure lengths, sizes. You know, can you build a conspan bridge? So now you're just lowering things. Are we building a full structure? So I just want to put it out there that we're fully vetting options. It's not that someone's come in or Mr. Gills or anyone else has just said, this is it and this is what we're going to do and we need to keep things closed until we find $2 or $3 million. There really is a process of trying to find how we can build the best structure that's going to be here 50, 100 years when we're not here anymore. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Sir.
I plan to be here in 50 years.
You've got the best shot of all of us, so there you go. Thank you. Okay, we're still in the second public session here, so, sir.
I know you want to get the meeting close, so I'll try to be very brief. Two things, two areas on the radios. I really want to stress that the commissioners should very, very seriously take up what was presented in prior meetings about obtaining secure transmissions, encryption for the radios. When I was in the military back in the 80s, we utilized burst transmitters, frequency hopping radios, and I can tell you, whether it's military or civilian, there's nothing more important than maintaining security of your command and control and your communications. There are going to be threats coming against our homeland, and if people can just simply go and buy a scanner and listen to what's going on, that creates a very, very severe threat to law enforcement and first responders. And the technology is available. It costs money. It is money well spent. And I implore the commissioners to pursue that and fund that project. On the other part of, the other thing I want to talk about, once again, roads and bridges. I am an engineer, although I do not hold a professional engineer's license in the state of Ohio. I hold a building inspector's license. And I can tell you that I believe everything that has been said by Commissioner Gills and his deputy is correct. I would not presume to speak against their base of knowledge and their expertise, just like I wouldn't presume to speak against the sheriff and his opinions about law enforcement. I do recognize the mayor's passion and his experience as a contractor. I live out there. I've walked those areas. I've seen the repairs that have been done, the attempts at repair on Ford Road, and I recognize that it has to be done correctly once and for all, and so I support what the engineer is trying to do there. But Mr. Plessner, you kind of muddied the waters after I spoke earlier. I just want to bring it back on point that, okay, it's true that the engineering is done on one of the 3 road projects and about to be done on the other 2. Is that correct?
The other one.
On one, right? Okay. And that it's true that these roads are county roads, and so they're your roads. They're the commissioner's roads, okay? Is it also true that the primary action that needs to take place is that you 3 gentlemen need to vote to move money into this fund that's been created or some other vehicle to fund these projects so that they can be bid on and then done? Is that true or is that false?
I'll look to legal, but I think that said a different way is what you had indicated earlier in the meeting, that we are talking through the mechanism by which funding will actually go into the account that was established at the last meeting.
Correct, and I should clarify, my answer was intended to the funds that you know and are in the process of collection. For instance, there was reference made to the $500,000 of surplus that is going to be transferred in. And in order to bid, you would be able to get an auditing certificate because you know the money's incoming and you are in the process of collecting it.
Sir?
Mr. President, one thing I want to clarify, because this has come up many times throughout this discussion with the East Side Roads and Bridges, and I think it's very important for residents to understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'd like you to actually confirm this. Lake County Commissioners hold legal title to all county property, correct?
Yes, sir. All real and personal.
So I hold legal title to every attorney-client privileged brief that you have in your possession.
Gets a little murkier with attorney-client privilege because the client also has an ownership issue, but you would own the staplers, the pens, the paper, the buildings.
My point being, I couldn't simply come into the prosecutor's office and start reading through briefs, even though I hold legal title to the building and arguably everything in it. It's true that the commissioners hold legal title to all county property, but there are other county officials who have custody, control, and responsibility for that property.
In that scenario, and I hate to, I want to be clear, we don't like to answer hypotheticals because there's so many variables out there. We would look at specifics of each and every, like if you were to ask about a specific vehicle or a specific building.
Nonetheless, if a commissioner came into the prosecutor's office and said, I'm going to read through all of your briefs now, would you simply let them?
No.
I didn't think so.
For the sake of brevity, could we keep it on point with the road?
This is a
Okay.
very important point, because
Please, sir.
it's been stated repetitively that the commissioners, quote, own the county roads, and that is certainly true. We own all county property. But just as the prosecutors have control over their briefs and the property and work that they deal with on a day-to-day basis, it is actually under the Ohio Revised Code the responsibility of the engineers to maintain the roads. In fact, it says the engineers shall, not may, not possibly could, not can if they feel like it, shall maintain the roads. So it's kind of an easy, and I'm not accusing you of being political, but it's an easy political statement to make. Well, the engineers own this, fix it. The engineers own that, deal with it. Or excuse me, the commissioners. I don't want to confuse anyone.
Freudian slip and too late.
The commissioners own this, own that, deal with it. Well, the commissioners own all county property. It's not a good argument to say the commissioners own it, so it's your problem. You have to ask what county official is legally required to do the job. And the reality is, I'm not an engineer. I have no desire, nor shall I ever run for county engineer. He is the only person, or she, should the office holder change, that has the responsibility for maintaining those roads. Period, point blank. It's not an argument to say the commissioners own it, ergo they must maintain it. The commissioners own all county property. And we would not be allowed to walk into a judge's chambers and read their briefs. We'd not be allowed to go into the prosecutor's office and review attorney-client privileged information with the recorders or the clerk of courts or their other clients. It's just an oversimplification. It's a political statement to say they own it, ergo they're responsible for it. And I really want to make that clear. If you look at the Ohio Revised Code, there's no debate. The engineer's office is responsible for maintaining the roads. I will be a zealous advocate to hold the engineer's office responsible for that duty. And I will push hard, regardless of who the engineer may be. But ultimately, I can't close a road. We've just heard our assistant prosecutor
But
explain.
the central point of the discussion is, how is the work going to get paid for?
Mr. Weiss, Commissioner Pleshnik has the floor. Please allow him to finish.
So in closing, I appreciate that there is this misunderstanding, but it's not helpful to have misunderstandings out there, because you need to know who is the actual decider in each and every case. As we've heard from our previous meetings, what the commissioners are doing together with the clerk of courts is remarkable, as in never been done before to anyone's recollection. We are stepping in to help, but it is not our responsibility to maintain county roads any more than it's our responsibility to charge people with murder, any more than it's our responsibility to collect property taxes. These are different roles and responsibilities of different elected officials. That said, I think this is the right place to have the discussion, because there aren't engineers meetings where you can come and question the county engineer and say, why haven't you made my road a higher or a lower priority? This was controversial when I was a council person in Willoughby Hills. Our city engineer had their priorities list, and people were often steamed when their road wasn't at the top to be repaired and somebody else's was. This is tough stuff. It's not an easy job being county engineer, and I do not envy it. But it is their right and responsibility to decide which roads are open and closed, to decide which roads are paved next, and they receive their funding directly from the state to do that job. Now, it is possible for the township trustees in their jurisdiction, for the county commissioners, the state of Ohio, or even Congressman Dave Joyce to provide them with additional funding, but it is ultimately the right role and responsibility of the county engineer to maintain the roads. And I say this not for myself, because I'm not on the ballot this year or next year. I say this for the benefit of the institution of the Board of Commissioners, as well as residents who have a right to know, who should I be lobbying if I want a different decision on roads and bridges? You can lobby the commissioners all day long. I'm already with you. There should be a more prompt repair schedule. There should be further planning and looking forward to make sure that these issues never happen again. I'm so there. I'm already there. But I am not the decider in that case. Now, we are working hard together, and I'm confident that Commissioner Regovich's proposed solution will be in place shortly to give the engineer the ability to start on these first 3 critical roads. But this is a long-term and a larger problem, and residents deserve to know who the responsible parties are. And if they hear, well, the commissioners own it, they're under the misimpression that we can say open or close, repair versus replace. They may believe we get the $10 million from the state every year that's supposed to go towards fixing the county roads and bridges, and that's not fair to residents who deserve to know who the decider is. And I just want to make that very clear, because you can lobby me all day long. I can't open or close a road, as we've just heard again today. You deserve as residents to know who's making the decision that you care about. That's the point I want to make.
And the point that I brought up is who's going to pay for it, okay? And you gentlemen, as commissioners, have control of the general fund. You have acknowledged that money needs to come from the county to fund the engineer's work on this. It's been acknowledged that the county engineer is meeting his fiduciary responsibilities for how he's managing his budget, and that his budget simply isn't large enough to run all of the other responsibilities of the engineer and deal with these issues. And the fact they all came up in Leroy is just coincidental. It could have come up anywhere in the county, okay? So I'm not bringing this up as a political football, but I just want to get to the point of, okay, what is the next action step? It seems to me that is to put the money in the fund or in place, vote for that, and allow that money to be in place so the engineer can bid the job, hire the contractors, and get the work done. So I want you to acknowledge that it is the three of you gentlemen have the ability and ultimately the responsibility to vote for that and put the money in place so this can move forward.
Mr. President,
Sir.
I want Mr. Weiss to have an immediate response. I'm not sure who acknowledged all the points that you've stated. I have not acknowledged those points. I believe that it is the responsibility of every county engineer in all 88 counties to take the funding that they receive, leverage it with grants, and repave and repair the roads and bridges in their jurisdiction in a timely fashion. That's what the Ohio Revised Code says their job is. That's what their job remains. So I don't acknowledge that the township trustees of Madison or Leroy are required to give extra money to the engineer. I don't acknowledge that the commissioners are required to give extra money to the engineer. I don't acknowledge that the congressman or the state are required to do so either. The law is very simple, shall maintain, and the person who shall maintain is the county engineer, and they are given an independent budget to do so. Very few county elected officials are given so much money from the state as a county engineer is. So I want to be very clear on that point. That said, because of how long the residents on the east side of the county, in particular on Ford Road, because of how long they've had to wait, which I believe and agree is unfair, we are coming together for an extraordinary solution. So I don't agree that this is something in the Ohio Revised Code that says the commissioners shall meet with the clerk of courts and find a way to bail out their engineers. That's not in the Ohio Revised Code. But we will work together, because this is such an important issue for our residents, to find an extraordinary solution. But we have to remember that any dollar that the commissioners take out of the general fund, we move from one budget line item to another, it's coming out of a different department. And it's very easy to say, well, I support the sheriff, or I support the prosecutor's office, or I support Job and Family Services, but then comes time to say, well, let's take some money from you to give to another department. So these are very difficult decisions that impact safety and lives regardless of where the money comes from or where the money goes. So it is not likely that the commissioners are going to be contributing monies towards this project, because ultimately money spent one place cannot be spent another. And much has been made of $100-some million in the bank. We know that the jail project, which is required of the commissioners to complete, the Ohio Revised Code does say the commissioners are required to provide for an incarceration facility for anyone that the judges may sentence. And we've got tough judges in Lake County from one end to the next. So we certainly do see, we don't catch and release, we actually hold people responsible, which keeps our residents safe, but that requires us to have a facility that holds them. So when we're told you have a $140 to $170 million jail project, possibly higher thanks to all the inflation we've been experiencing from Washington, D.C., saying you have $100-some million in the bank to pay for a $170 million jail does not mean that there is extra money. If we take money for one department, it's coming out of another. And every department is doing critical, life-saving work. If it weren't, we should eliminate it. If there is a department that is doing something unnecessary, well, guess what? It shouldn't be there. So we as commissioners are doing our best to fund all these critical safety and life-saving issues and departments. And when one department comes to us and says, we need more money, ultimately that money is coming out of another department or out of your pocket in the form of increased taxes. And I think I've made it very clear, my favorite moniker is Commissioner No, because I'm a no vote on any new taxes. So that means, from my perspective, any money that we're giving to one department is coming from another. And you can make the argument that the engineer needs the money more than the sheriff, but you can make the opposite argument too. And when I've talked to other county officials about the situation that we've dealt with in neighboring counties, to be honest, they laughed and said, we never give our engineer any additional money. We say, hey, you get all this money from the state, why don't you share some with us? So this is a very difficult issue. It really is. But I am committed, and I know my Board of Commissioners is committed to working with the engineer, working with the clerk of courts to make this work for our residents, but we're also committed to making sure this does not happen again. And so I think that the mayor's point is apropos. We need to ask for future decisions. We need to be more aggressive about keeping roads open. And that doesn't mean less safety. That means more aggressive about keeping the road repaired so that it is safe in the period. And I understand it's not always possible. I'm not here to nitpick or look at any one decision. But I am here to say that we should make it a priority that roads are closed for as short a period of time as humanly possible while it is safety. It's certainly true that it's not legal for the engineer to keep a road open that he believes is unsafe. But I'm going to ask you one closing question, Mr. DeLeon. Is it legal for the county engineer to fix a road to make it safe?
There are a lot of variables in that question, but the county engineer makes the recommendations on what and how to fix the roads based upon their expertise and level of experience. Mr. Gills is the elected engineer, and he has a great staff over there, including Tracy, who's here with us today. And they evaluate and they make the recommendations on how and when to fix the roads.
Is it illegal for the engineer to fix roads?
No.
So I'll take that as a diplomatic yes. It is legal for the engineer to repair roads. And ultimately, we need to come together as a county to make sure that this does not happen again. But the answer cannot be we're going to permanently cut the budget of our sheriff or county prosecutor to make an earmark that no other county does. The answer has to be
That wasn't what I raised.
we deal with the initial problem, the emergency we have today, and we have a long-term plan so that we don't come to a point where the engineer says, I don't have enough money. And we'll certainly continue to lobby state government, but at the same time, no department head has enough money. I think if you interviewed the recorder, I think if you interviewed the sheriff, I think if you interviewed the treasurer's office, they would all tell you about critical needs that they have. I don't think a single one of them would tell you that they have extra money, other than possibly the title bureau and the clerk of court's office, and God bless them for sharing that.
What I'm hearing overall is that the fact that the county engineer doesn't have the funds to do all of the projects that are necessary to maintain the infrastructure of our roads, and through no fault of the engineer's office, that's not your problem. What I want to know, are you going to fund, and when are you going to fund, repairs to any one or all of these roads that need repaired? When are you going to vote to do that?
Mr. Weiss, Commissioner Regovich is probably better to speak on this. But
No, I'm asking you.
Then I will. I will say this to you. We are working with all due speed for an extraordinary solution. I think that we are very close to addressing these three roads. And while that is absolutely the point to the people who live on those three roads, I am not willing to sit here and let it happen again. And no, I'm not willing to say through no fault of their own. You can say, well, the commissioners or the city council bankrupted the city through no fault of their own. Each government official is responsible for their budget. And each government official is presented with massive challenges. Inflation, is that anybody's fault? No. Except for the folks in Washington, D.C. It's their fault.
When are you going to vote to either fund or deny funding for these projects?
I believe that we're going to be voting to put out a bond very soon, which is what I proposed at the very beginning of this debate. And I wish that people had listened sooner.
So you're not going to earmark the funds, you're going to go for a bond. And when are you going to do that?
We have to earmark the funds to go for a bond.
When are you going to do that?
As soon as we can get all the necessary documentation and signatures, including, by the way, a signed memorandum of understanding with the engineer's office, because I'm not willing to give any funds to a department without a clear understanding that it will be used for the task at hand. If we were to give a bond issue of $6 to $8 million to the engineer and then Ford Road was not to be repaved, I think we would have a very entertaining commissioners meeting, and I'm not going to even let that be a possibility.
So the only thing you need is a memorandum of understanding from the engineer for you to be in a position to vote whether to fund or deny funding to these projects? Is that what you're telling me?
Oh, along with a certificate of funding from the auditor's office, a legal opinion from the prosecutors, a bond issuance prepared to actually vote on. There's a lot of paperwork that goes into this, but
Why hasn't any of those things been done in the months that this has been under discussion and the year plus since these roads were closed?
Mr. Weiss, simply put, that's because my solution and Regovich's solution was not immediately chosen by the engineer, the Board of Commissioners. I frankly would have liked for people to have jumped on board faster, but here we are. And once again, this is not something that commissioners do on an ordinary basis. This is an extraordinary remedy. Normally, the engineer reprioritizes their budget, moves money from one line to the next, and gets it done. That's the ordinary course of business. It is very rare, here or anywhere, that the county engineer says, I give up, help me. That's very rare.
So your position is the only initiative you're willing to vote for is a bond?
Mr. President.
Sir.
So we have been working with the engineer, with the budget director, with the county administrator, and with the Township Association president to come up with a strategy to get that done. As I stated before in this meeting, that our budget director is on vacation this week. So when he gets back, we're going to move funds into the account that we committed. We will work on the funds that are coming from the clerk of court's office to get them in the account, but it'll be enough there for them to get started because our budget director is going to use the best strategy possible to have that money that we put aside to help the engineer's office now to last and get the best use out of it. And he's the expert that does that.
I think it's reasonable for the public to know when you expect to have all this accomplished.
I'm not going to speak to how fast he's going to get things when he comes back in the office Monday and how quickly that's going to happen. The sooner the better in my mind. We're of the understanding that we could go out to bid on the closest that's project that's easy first to go. As the engineer stated before, the priority is which one's ready to go. And if that's Williams Road, then Williams Road is ready to go. We can go out to bid now, and I'm hoping maybe as early as next week we have the funding to pay for Williams Road in that account.
So we're all in agreement that the conditions are such that the engineer can go and bid the Williams Road project.
I leave that up to legal, and I believe you stated that earlier.
Do you have all the funding in the process of coming in? For instance, I know you have $500,000 coming in from the clerk of courts.
And we have funding from the commissioners that is also going to go in from a different account. So,
and that would be enough to pay for the anticipated cost of the
Williams Road or the first project, and then look at the remainder balance, and then we'll bond the rest.
So as a good faith gesture, can the commissioners vote on putting those funds, to the extent you just spoke of, in the fund?
Not without something before us, not without what fund it's coming from, where it's going to, and it all comes from the budget director.
So we got to wait for him to come back.
Exactly.
Okay. We'll keep coming back and asking until we get the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. In the interest of clarity, though, I think it is appropriate to go over some points. I think we can all agree that the engineer shall maintain his language in the revised code that we all acknowledge. The issue regarding the commissioners maintaining, I think, is it is a disingenuous argument. It is a difference between shall maintain or shall fund issue. And I'm saying this directly to Commissioner Plechnik, using your own logic. The commissioners can fund these repairs. You mentioned reaching out to everyone from trustees to a congressman. That means we're in that chain of potential funders. I think the line is very clear. Title is in the name of the commissioners. No one's asking to read legal documents. You've used the word conflate in the past. I think it's appropriate to point this out. I think there's been a misrepresentation of the revised code regarding the engineer's responsibility to maintain. Responsibility does not equal funding. I think it's also appropriate to add that moving funds does not equal defunding a department. I am not willing to go to the public and tell them you have to wait 30 years before I can address your problem. We are looking at a 30-year bond on a new facility for our sheriff. Our sheriff has gone on record that he will not compromise the county for 30 years if we have to commit every available nickel to one single project and not be able to maintain or perform other legally obligated projects. He is not in support of that. I can also not imagine any bonding authority in their review process allowing us to ignore every other responsibility that we have. I think it's also appropriate to point out that Lake County is the 11th most populous county in the state of Ohio, and we have the infrastructure that goes with that. Comparing us to counties that are significantly smaller than us without acknowledging that we're comparing counties that are smaller than us, that logic would not hold up in union negotiations for wages. It should not hold up in discussions regarding how we're going to fund roads and bridges. Sounds like you're really going to dig your heel in on the bond issue, and I'm going to dig my heels in and say, how is the engineer supposed to pay for this? And at no time have I heard the engineer say words to the effect of, I give up. What I have heard is an exhaustive effort has gone into it, doing the best they can with the limited resources they have. And when no other funding source was available, the engineer did the responsible thing and came to us immediately and said, we have a problem. We not only have at risk, what I'm going to repeat, life safety issues with closed roads and bridges, we have at risk matching fund projects where we're getting 80 cents for our 20 cents and we don't have the 20 cents to put towards that. We are risking losing a great deal. I really look forward to hearing how the engineer is going to pay for this. If a bond is brought forward, there has to be a mechanism to pay for it that is clear and sustainable. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Tracy, but is there anything you want to add to this, or if you pretty much... Thank you, ma'am. All right, if there's nothing further to come before this board, there is a request for an executive session. The topic is legal, pending litigation. There will be no business to be conducted afterwards. May I have a, by the way, before I do that, is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the board? Mayor, I'm assuming you have something new to add.
Yes, I do.
Yes, sir, thank you. I am so sorry. I almost closed the meeting, and I apologize, but thank you for your patience, sir.
Just a quick question. One, the engineer's estimates for Ford, Williams, and Blair, do we have those approximate estimates, what they're going to cost?
For Williams, because, I apologize. On Williams, all the plans are done. There are estimates on Williams. Payne, the engineer at B&N is completing those. There's a tentative estimate, which we have. And then Ford is a little more tentative because the preliminary engineering with the options is being completed. So that's where they'll present to the engineer all of the different costs for each of the options.
Do we have any tentative numbers to date, or no? Or
For all
approximate?
of them, we have tentative date values.
Can I ask what those are, or can you not divulge that right now?
I think on Ford, I wouldn't be able to, or Payne, because I know they're still making modifications because the plans aren't done. Williams is approximately $800,000.
Okay. Because I'd like to put a public record request in for the engineering study that was done on repairs versus replacing a Ford road, why the engineer decides that it needs to be replaced instead of, again, repaired where we can possibly, until we can get some funding and money, put together, maybe buy a few years out of it at least. Because right now, we're scratching, even though we're trying to appropriate money, It's money we don't have, and again, if we have to pull it somewhere or get bonds on it, which is also difficult because we have to find out how we're going to pay it back. I mean, these are all things, I mean, we don't have the money. Maybe we should look back at, can this thing be fixed long enough safely, you know, to get us by a couple of years so that we can get money, get it, and then get it designed, and then get it fixed correctly in a few years from now. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I'm saying is that's another option to look at, because again, it's going to take, if we have to wait for bonding, that's going to take months and months. And then again, you're talking about by the time the bidding process, it goes out to bid, then construction, and that's a big project. I looked at it. I mean, it's going to take at least a year project to get a contractor in there with the weather and so forth. So again, how are we going to leave that road closed for over a year now, an additional year? I don't see that. And again, we're talking a major safety issue. Talk about fire trucks. Yeah, it could be repaired to a point. I believe it could be safe enough to drive a fire truck off of it. Again, my unexpert opinion. But again, as a contractor, I believe nothing is impossible. Again, as long as we look at it intelligently, and there should be a solution to it. And again, I think there were things that, soil stabilization, chemical grouting, I did a lot of that for tunnel projects, okay? It worked very well, especially in this kind of condition where you have these type of soil conditions and these conditions. So I just would like, again, the engineers, and the commissioners to have the engineer's office relook at this, and again, come up with something that we can get immediately repaired and get these roads immediately opened. Again, it is not acceptable that these roads are closed, even while we're talking about this. It should be open temporarily. And again, a couple of them, you can put one lane with traffic signals. I mean, it's better than nothing. It's an emergency. Put speed limit, lower the speed limits. I mean, anything, but let's get these things open one way or another. I mean, this is beyond. I had to drive from one end. I went on the wrong side. It took me 20 minutes to go all the way around to the other end. I'm sorry. As a resident, I would say that is definitely not acceptable. So again, that's all I want to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, one last call. Anyone wishing to address this board? Anyone at all? All right, and just to restate, there is a request for an executive session. The subject will be legal pending litigation. There will be no business to be conducted afterwards. May I have a motion to adjourn for the reasons so stated?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Thank you for joining us today. This meeting stands adjourned.